Okay, so I'm live. Good morning, everybody. How's it going? Let me know if you're here in the comments. I'm just sending out the newsletter now. So what tends to happen is until I send out that newsletter, people don't necessarily know I'm live. But it's a Monday morning job before I wake up, so it's always a little bit late. Sorry. So I'm just going to quickly send out that while you're here. So let's go. So I can tell you about some of the events as I'm adding them to. So big thing is this week we've got 2 events, which is the Sifted Summit and the National Fantasy Exhibition. If you make either of those, then do. Like, the links are all in the comments in the newsletter. So it'd be great to see. Pop on by. I am now very quickly just going to add these events. So what's the date today? We have London Build Station is currently on. Then so it's always way harder to do this newsletter while I'm talking to you guys. So October 2nd is today at 9 a.m. Smash this out. Okay. Then we've got a Dockside Web3 kickoff party. So any of you into Web3, that's an event that's tonight at 5 p.m. So, that's a great way for you to meet people in the Web3 space. Monday. Okay, I'm back. So what I need to do is buy new iPhones and buy entrepreneurship. This allows me and costing me money. Okay, I'm back and I've got my crappy webcam. So you can basically see the difference of I'm usually using my iPhone, which is a lot higher quality, but sometimes we have issues. So I'm going to put you over to my screen. Okay. So if you are watching this live, then drop something in the comments. I'm going to answer some questions. I just need to quickly get something sorted out while I'm doing this. So almost there, almost there. So I got some questions actually through email, which I'm going to go through. So bear with me for 2 minutes while I get this sorted out, and then I will start answering those questions. Okay, there's some Choose DAO event, which I guess is about DAOs. One moment, let me just get through this quickly. Nobody's in here yet. 1 moment. Hi, Sahara. So I'm quickly just adding. So Sahara there in the comments is our executive assistant, and the job I'm doing now is a job that I'm going to be sending you tomorrow, so that I don't do it while I'm on the call. But I just haven't done the instructions yet. So, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to send out this email in a moment with the less stuff on there, just so I can start focusing on some of the questions. Where am I? Let me get this very, very quickly done. Okay. So much pressure doing this while I'm currently live. So, update. Okay, so we've got 2 people on. And I need to add some of the pictures. So I should really just wake up earlier and just get this done before this call. Let's see. So let me tell you about some of the feedback from my event last Tuesday. So HSBC Innovation Banking, manage event. So we had feedback. How do I see it? Insights. So we had 16 ratings and 4.8 average. So one person gave us a 4 basically, but all of the others gave 16. So Nikita said, keep doing it. Amazing event. Always happy to help going forwards. Harminder Kaur said, I think it was a great night. Really well organized and exactly what we needed for the community. Well done to everyone involved. And I wish you every success in smashing your goals. Yasmin Malik said, thank you very much for organizing the event. It was a fantastic event. Great, very honest and inspiring panel with varied career backgrounds. Then Rishabh Shah, really positive event. It was buzzing and there's plenty of incredible people in the room. Just need to do more of these events. Sabah Sadiq, amazing panel of guests, being surrounded with stories that inspire and assist with grow in our community. Thanks for the invite. And Varun Banat, brilliant invite. Look forward to more. So I'm just adding that to our newsletter. And once that's been added, I will send the newsletter. And then I can focus my attention fully on you guys. So let's duplicate this. We're going to have memories. I'm going to put a camera. Like so. Image. Okay, an image. Okay. Let me So if you're joining and watching, just give me 2 more minutes while I quickly sort something out. So you're seeing the real live Monday morning panic for me. While I get moving, 1 second. HQ. Okay. Okay. Zero gap. Okay. Okay. Very close, very close. Okay. 1 moment. I feel like I'm saying 1 moment a lot. Sorry, guys. Let's add this image. So now I'm focusing here. So the email is now sent. Hopefully there weren't too many mistakes, but let's do the update. So we had Q3 update, which came out yesterday or it came out Saturday. So that goes through some of the big updates from the last month. I'll go through some of the launches now. So we're launching an ambassador program, and that's for some of the senior people in the startup space who want to help us because they've been what we're doing. So make sure you check that out. The lab podcast is launching today, hopefully. So we're just waiting for final compliance checks. And once that is done, then we'll be live. Then we're also launching a few other things too. So if you want to check out those updates, watch that video because I go through it in a bit more detail. We've got events this week. So we've got Sifted Summit. So Sifted Summit is the Financial Times' European Startup Summit. And there's going to be like thousands of entrepreneurs there, including the founder of Stripe. So if you want a ticket to that, you can use our code BAY10, which will get you 10% off. Then we're at the National Franchise Exhibition on Friday, and that's going to have like tons of the top franchisors in the country there who are going to talk through their journeys and explore that model. So that's in the NEC in Birmingham. So make sure you check that out too. What I'm doing now is just going to set this up on something like the screens. Okay, so that's all set. So people have got the link now, which is live. So get shareable link. Okay. So what I need to do is I'm just going to find an email where somebody asked a bunch of questions. Once I've got through that, then I'll answer any questions from the audience too. Okay. So I had a bank of questions from somebody, which was, what's her name? Was, yeah, so these are questions that came in through email. So sometimes when people ask me questions, I think it would be better if I covered it for most people at once, then I'll do that. So that's perfect. So if I go back, so the questions here. So the first question is, from the podcast episode, you speak about writing for Medium whilst managing your day job. I know this is a hard decision for you to make. How did you do this? So I think of any question like this is something which is in my content quite a lot. So if I go over a brief level, is when I was having, so for those of you who don't know, I initially was a tech consultant and then I started writing online, which did better than I thought it was going to do. I was unable to quit my job for that, but it wasn't the intention to begin with. But what happened is I was able to out earn my day job for a period of about 3 months. And I was getting so many inbound opportunities that it was like, well, this seems like the correct thing to do now, right? It should be prioritizing this because it's generating an income. It's more exciting than what I'm doing. I've got all these different options I can do in the future. So that was a kind of decision behind that of thinking, what am I going to regret the least? And another thing that happened too is that I had essentially 3 uses of my time during the pandemic. So 3 uses of my time, so that's social life, work, and the side hustles, right? That's the 3 key things, and when I include social life is friends, family, etc. Whereas during the pandemic, I couldn't do a lot of that stuff. I could only do the like work and side hustle. I couldn't really have a social life because you couldn't go out. And then I didn't go out even when people were allowed to go out for a little bit, just because of like, as I was bedding in again, and you lose some of the outgoingness and extrovertedness with what happened during the pandemic. So I had to choose between work, side hustles, and social life. So I'm getting an echo. So what happened there is I then decided to what was going to go at the least. So I thought, like at that point, like I didn't like leaving work is a big deal for me, and it's not something I advise anybody to do just casually. But I thought that I'd regret not being social, not being able to see people, and not seeing what my side hustles would get to more than quitting my job. Because I was also very lucky in that I had a good relationship with my boss, and they said to me, like, we believe you should try this. Go ahead and do it. If it doesn't work out, even though we think it will, you can come back here. And that gave me that confidence because I knew that I had that backup option. Even then, with the backup option, it's scary because you think, well, I can't, like, how do I know that like it's going to actually work out? You don't know. And it's more of a case of the worry of, are people going to judge me? Are people going to think I'm a failure? Am I going to think I'm a failure? Rather than the actual practical side of things, like if it didn't work out, it didn't work out. I'd find something else to do. Like that's what you have to do, right? You have to adapt and adjust. But that was behind my decision making there of how I quit my job. And I think a lot of people think about it way too early because if you don't have that financial stability, if you don't have that ability to be comfortable, then it creates a lot of stress and anxiety. And for some people, that enables them to perform at their best. For other people, it will cripple them and they won't be able to then perform at the way they want to perform. So it's better for many people to actually work on the side for a bit, get it to a stage where it can take off, because especially people want to know about, say, the podcasting space. The likelihood you're going to be able to earn enough money from podcasting to quit your job is very low. I'm very much an anomaly, and I wouldn't advise anybody to do that get rich quick or anything like that. Of, oh yeah, you should quit your job and become like. It's not a good idea for most people. It should be something which you want to do, not just for the money. Okay, so next question is your main source of income. doesn't just come from podcasting. Okay, so I'm going to read out the question now, right, that I've got. So you mentioned on LinkedIn just now that your main source of income doesn't come from podcasting. Now, from listening to the podcast episode, I understand your writing on Medium generates a source of income. Is that still the case today? How do you make money ultimately to help finance the Bay HQ as well as other projects? Apologies if this is personal. Just want a rough idea of how you make it happen. And this is where it comes into play that you've got to remember that I had a career in the corporate world for 7 years, as well as earning money on the side. And once I quit my job, I was able to get high paying clients because I had a very strong bank of content out there that meant I could charge prices which the average person couldn't. So again, it's the outlier effect. In terms of sources of income now, for the last year, I've been mainly focusing on not-for-profit, which has been me investing my own money in getting this project off the ground. And that's a privilege because I've been able to have that excess. Excess is not excess, it's I've had cash available from my work and from my savings to be able to fund the Bay HQ and to not worry too much about income. Obviously, you worry about income. And now, we're in October now, we're nearly at a year of the Bay HQ. So the 1 year anniversary is the 16th. And now I'm having to focus again on like, okay, make this more sustainable. So we've got our first partners for the Bay HQ, Desi City, coming on board. So that partnership money, and it's a partnership as opposed to a sponsorship, because it's not just about the podcast. And that's what I think many people forget, is that Bay HQ is a lot more than that. It's the events, it's the network, it's the community, rather than just a podcast, because a podcast is one to many, right? You don't get a chance to talk to me and you don't get a chance to interact with people. The biggest value of the Bay HQ from people who came to events such as last week is the other people you get to meet who are also aligned with our mission. That's a huge value because there's limitations to what we can do, but we can put you in connections with so many people who are on the same path as you are. So what I'm going to start doing, and I've got a call about this today, is start doing some fractional work, for example, because now I have this higher level of expertise in different areas because I've been able to build my own brand, I've been able to build this wide network that I can then do roles for other startups, which can be paid at quite a significant level. I mean that I'm not working a huge amount of hours, but I'm generating a lot of value, and that can enable me to focus primarily on the Bay HQ. Longer term, there's different ways we're going to make money through the Bay HQ, such as advisory and investments, for example. But right now, how do I make the money to finance the Bay HQ? One is a partnership just come on board, but primarily it's because of the success early in my life. When I say success, I mean financial success. When you began, so next question is, when you began podcasting, did you do any preparatory courses, such as public speaking, interview courses, or did you get good at podcasting through doing as much practicing as possible? I know you talk about this just starting in this space, but I wonder if there's any courses you focus on. So, spoiler alert, I'm going to create my own course because obviously I get a lot of people ask me about podcasting, and it's not something which I can do one-to-one with people because there's many people who in the past I've had coffee with them who are going to start a podcast. They never actually launch that podcast. I spend an hour or 2 hours of my time teaching them how to do it, and then they don't actually follow through. So in the podcasting space now, in terms of courses, I will be releasing a course through the Bay HQ, and the idea would be either you pay or you do referral based. So if you do 10 referrals or something like that, I don't know exact number yet, so don't hold me to that. You can get access to the course where I'm going to teach people how to do podcasting properly. And that's more effective than me one-on-one talking to people, unless somebody wants that one-on-one support, which then they pay for. In terms of podcast courses, there's a huge amount of content online about how to do this. Did I take any courses? I didn't take any paid courses, definitely. I think I looked into YouTube and stuff, but it's also the nature of who I am as a person, where I was a tech consultant. My nature is to find problem, solve problem, move on to the next problem. I get a thrill out of that, right? Of being in the situations where I don't really know what I'm doing, learning how to do it. Biggest thing I say to people starting in the podcast space is stop overthinking it in terms of trying to think you're going to get a perfect first 10 episodes, because it's highly unlikely that you're going to do that. If you're already somebody with a big audience, then you might be able to hit the ground running a bit more because you've got, like, there's some people I know, for example, where they start a podcast, they've already got a big audience, they've already been on TV. It's a lot easier. It's an unfair advantage that they have. And you can't compare yourself to those people. what I generally tell most people is first 10 episodes, interview people who you already know. Don't cold outreach, because if you cold outreach to me and you've got less than 10 episodes, I don't yet have the idea. I can't accurately gauge, is this something which you're just doing as a hobby? Are you going to actually keep going? And I want to prioritize my time in terms of, if I'm going to guest on podcasts, on people that have put in the reps and I know they're going to stick around because I'm actually helping them. If they're going to give up after the 2 more episodes, I'm not actually doing like anybody any real service. So that's my biggest advice: is first 10 episodes, people you already know. And if you don't know 10 people to interview, you shouldn't be starting a podcast, is my general advice, because it's good for outreach, yes, but you should already have a decent enough network to be able to make that happen. And you can do different seasons. Right? The first season can just be a certain level of guests that's maybe then you can build upon that, and then the next season better guests and better guests and better guests. But the best way to create a podcast is to just start. And you will suck at the beginning, because I sucked at the beginning, everybody sucks at the beginning, but you've got to be okay with that. Otherwise, you're never going to get started. Okay. The next question. I may be answering my own question here, but would you recommend creating a podcast for a specific niche, target audience, rather than being generic and broad? I asked this because another person told me that being specific with who the podcast is for is important. Yeah, like you've answered your question there. It should always be a specific niche. And even, for example, the Bay HQ as British Asian entrepreneurs is already quite broad. So I had people who, for example, from medical backgrounds want to come to about something medical related, and that's not our niche. So if we're not consistent with who we're serving, then we don't serve anybody. And that's a really important thing. There's so many people who want to start a podcast about social issues or about entrepreneur, or not even entrepreneurship. Yeah, general entrepreneurship, right? So the Bay HQ is British Asian entrepreneurs. That's the niche. And nobody else is doing that to the level or the quality that we can do it at. But I think generally a big problem people make is they try to be interesting to everybody, and what they end up is being okay to everybody. And you don't spend your time on things that are okay. If you think about how many podcasts are out there already, you've got to be the best podcast or the most interesting podcast or the most entertaining podcast in a specific area. That means that people, when they see their list of podcasts they subscribe to, they're going to choose yours over the other ones in their feed. In terms of advice, what tips can you give me that would allow me to stand out from the crowd, differentiate myself from others? So to me, this is a question that if you have to ask this question, then you're doing something wrong. So you should have the idea of what you're going to differentiate yourself on in order to start a podcast. If you're asking people how to differentiate yourself, then to me that implies you're not yet ready to start a podcast. So you can discover this over time, like you can work on it, but nobody can tell you how to differentiate yourself unless you're going to go through coaching, unless that person's going to get to know you very well. It should come from you and your heart of what you care about and what you're interested in and where you think you're going to be better than everybody else is. So I can't tell somebody who I don't know well how to differentiate themselves from a podcast or how to differentiate their content, because they would have to know their own skills and their own abilities and what their own qualities are. What is it like day-to-day balancing all of your responsibilities as someone self-employed? What are your pros and cons from it so far? So at the moment I work pretty much. That's a polo, by the way. I realized I made that look dodgy. Just my mouse would dry. So what is like day-to-day balancing all your responsibilities as somebody self-employed? What are the pros and cons you've experienced from it so far? So in terms of balance, it's very difficult. And this is one of the reasons why I'm doing this, for example, is that the nature of what I do generates a lot of inbound. A lot of inbound means that a lot of messages I need to reply to. And the challenge is, obviously, I want people to reply. I want to try and help people, but I can't do it one-on-one and scale that, because if I've only got 24 hours in a day, I ideally want to sleep sometimes. I'm trying to spend time with my family and trying to spend time looking after my health. So that reduces the time as well. Now, in those hours that I have, I've got lots of different missions I want to achieve. So that prioritization aspect is which it comes and goes. Sometimes I'm good at it, sometimes I'm not good at it. And sometimes it's a case of where it's different points in time. Say, for example, I've got a TEDx Chigwell in 3 weeks. That's a lot of stress, a lot of work, but I know there's a finite ending to that. If there's no finite ending to that stress, then you've got to change your systems. You can't just have it the same stress every week. So another thing, for example, like Sahara, who had a comment there, she's our executive assistant. So that takes a huge load off me and is really helpful because she can take up some of the roles where it doesn't need to be me in particular, right? So Sahara does a great job. So if you look at, for example, if you look at the transcripts on the website, she did that. If you look at some of the profiles, I don't think we've released them yet, so we'll release the profiles soon. If you look at some of the social media content, Sahara's been able to help with that. And what that means is that it's less jobs for me to think about. And especially when it comes to hiring, is that the big thing is like when you can do things where you don't have to worry anymore, it reduces the mental load on you. Biggest pros and cons, I could take hours and just answering that one question. The biggest pros is that I get to do what I want. The biggest cons is that I can often push myself too far. If I was working with somebody else, I wouldn't work as hard as I'm working now. But it's because I care about what I'm doing a lot. And that can blur the boundaries a lot. And I think that's another big pro and con is because of what I'm doing is quite different, then it's a conversation topic and people ask me about it a lot. But it also means that it's more difficult for me to kind of separate work and my personal life because they're all blurred together. And that's something I miss of where before I used to be able to just turn on my laptop at 5 o'clock, at 6 o'clock, and then I could just enjoy the rest of my day. Now I can't do that. Now I'm constantly thinking about it. I'm quite good at if I'm with people, then I'm present. But as soon as I'm on the train home, as soon as I'm doing something else, then it's constantly in my mind. So one of the things I'm going to do, for example, to deal with that is on the last week of October, I'm going to go on holiday. I'm going to tell anybody I'm going. I'm not going to post any pictures of social media or anything like that. I'm just going to rest because I think it's overdue for me now. And when you're self-employed, it's very hard to set those boundaries because when I initially started, I was like, I'm going to work 20 hours a week. But the nature of how I am means I'm very ambitious. I want to make a difference. I've got these lofty targets, which means that I will work way more than that. And I will also stretch myself very thin. So I enjoy a challenge, but for my heart, I probably enjoy a challenge a bit too much. And I need to work out which battles to take on and which battles not to take on a bit better. So let me find that. I lost the email of the questions. I think there's one more question in this set. Do you generate any money from the Bay HQ, and if so, how? So a big theme of this question set is the idea that making money from podcasting. And I want to break the illusion that people have about that. Like most people, podcasters, don't make any money or very little money from the actual podcast. It's generally you've got a business that's tangential to that. So let's say Entrepreneur's Handbook is that through that I was gaining clients. So those clients might pay me $1 per word. So while the podcast would make me money, I'd be able to gain clients who would be able to see my expertise, who would hire me. And I might be able to earn $1,000 an article for them. And that's not something which you can just shortcut. It's because I spent a year or two building a massive brand. And that instead of focusing on how to make money from podcasting, it's what's the actual business. Podcasting is not a business generally. And I know that's probably contrary to what a lot of creators might tell you online who are trying to sell you a dream. So I think if you look at like the average amount that people make per 1,000 views, I think it's like $20 for the average podcast. So that's for 1,000 views. Let's say, and 1,000 views puts you in like means you're doing very well as a podcast. Let's say you get 10,000 views a month or 10,000 downloads a month. That's $200. So that's a lot of work for $200. So instead, what podcast is and what podcast is for me, it's a lead magnet. It's a way to build a community. And that community is a way that you can potentially monetize in the future. The Entrepreneur's Handbook side, Mindful and Driven side, that was generating business for me. in terms of my writing side. The Bay HQ, it's a different because it's a partnership and it's also a mission-driven organization. There's a lot more to it. The Bay HQ is not just a podcast. The podcast is just the public-facing side, and there's a lot more to it. So what we'll do soon, and we can see it in the Q3, you look at the Q3 update episode, to tell you a bit more. But yeah, if you're somebody who's looking to quit their job to create a content-based business, I'd advise you to be very cautious because it's not easy, and you've got to be able to associate. Okay, it's not easy. It's also sometimes things are simple but not easy. Simple meaning that how do you make money? You get loads of views. How do you get loads of views? You make good content. How do you make good content? This is where it gets more complicated, right? So at that top level, it's if you're looking at quitting a job to become a creator, I would strongly advise most people to do it on the side first. And remember, I'm 220 something episodes into the podcast. There's a lot of work that's gone into that. In the early days, unless you're getting significant traction, which only you can judge, I would advise to be quite cautious about just quitting your day job for it, unless you have the financial securities to do so. So that would be my general feedback there. In terms of, again, money from Bay HQ in different ways. So we mentioned in the last podcast that we've got the Bay HQ Impact, which is a not-for-profit, and the Bay HQ. And the Bay HQ profit side is we will do pitch decks with people, we'll do other ways of making money, right? So it's generally only the top 1%. So when I was writing on Medium, I was in the top 0.01% or something, and I was earning, I think I've said this publicly, like close to 100k like annualized per year at times, right? Now, that is not something which I tell people like, oh yeah, if you take my writing course, you can make that much, because most people can't make that much. It's very much an outlier blockbuster model. So I wouldn't try to sell you that dream. You've got to be very realistic about the majority of the people won't generate a huge amount of income. But if you can do services in the meantime that generates you income while you try to build up a brand, that will help tide you over. And that's where I'd probably look at that. So I think I've answered those questions there. Any questions from the audience? Would also be great to know as well. So I know I mentioned there are a lot of questions about podcasting. What kind of stuff that you guys want to learn more about? Because I can make content around that, and then I can help more of you at scale. Any questions? Okay. Got another 19 minutes, so 10 people in the audience. Any questions? Feel free to ask away. Whether it's about business, whether it's about podcasting, whether it's about what we've got coming up in the future. So I guess to remind you guys, we've got 2 events this week. We should have events on the 8th of November as well. With what I can't announce yet because it's not completely confirmed, but keep an eye out for that. One of the things which I'm going to enjoy quite a lot actually this week is when we're at some of the conferences, we're going to be interviewing members of the crowd, right? To say, like, tell us your story. And you might have seen this on TikTok before. And it's that kind of idea, right? How can we get it in that way so that we get that engagement, we get that community side of things? Because as I said, like, the Bay HQ is much more than just a podcast. The podcast element is inspiration, it's like teaching people things. But a big part of it too is like, how do we go from being an information source to being a community? And I think Tuesday, for example, showed that really strongly about how much love all getting from people how much people are like, oh, like we want you to do more events. Maybe I can actually show you that. I can show you some of the pictures from that event. Let's see. Let's see if I can find it in my emails. I've got a million emails. Okay. So I think I can share my screen. Yeah, so I'm gonna give you a little slight picture show while I wait for questions here. Okay, so I'm gonna add to step. Okay, let me try that again. So stop screen there, present, share screen, entire screen. I want this screen. There you go. Okay, so now I can show you some of the photos. So let's see. So this is the presentation that me and Gervir did on Tuesday. Now the internet's being very slow, which is very annoying. If anybody knows a way to get optic fiber to Chigwell, let me know. So that's me being caught in a funny moment. And so see there's some of the pipeline we've got going up. Us on stage presenting. You can see like a packed house, everybody in the audience. There's people who came straight off their flights to come to the event, as you can see from the suitcases there, which is pretty amazing. So this is a lovely picture from the video angle. So that's our expert panel there. So that's Jeff Chowdhury, Dimple Patel, and Jay Goodrow, who are all amazing. There's Devon behind them from HFC Innovation Banking, who was part of putting the event together. So massive thank you to her. So again, you can just see everybody looks like they're paying attention, which is great. Let me skip ahead. So see Gervir shining moment. There you go. There's me. Okay, I like this picture. I think you might see this on my Instagram pretty soon. If you look at some other ones, this is the panel itself. So here you can see, again, like everybody speaking, paying attention. Let's go to the bit where you can see the audience. So mingling, I've named this folder. So the event was at HFC Innovation Banking, which is great. So I can test myself on some of the people I recognize here. So that's Tanya Gupta, who's been on the podcast. That's Asad Hamir, who's been on the podcast. Jenny Sue is helping. Can't quite recognize from the back of the head there. That's Anand, who's Project Chakra. That's Jaspal Rai here. That's Param Singh. That's can't quite tell from the back. I don't accidentally mislabel somebody. Okay, so you can see some more photos here. So this is everybody again after the panel finished, everyone stuck around because they were enjoying themselves, which is really quite great to see. So I've invested in her company. That's Holly Simmons, which is from Naya. That's Richard Ung. That's Neda Sahibelm. So she's been recorded on the podcast on last Friday. That's Louisa Plint. So I've invested in her company too. So Louisa is Auxeris. That looks like Harm Rahal, Rushabh Shah. Can't tell. Bit blurry. Who's that? Yeah, I can't quite tell from this angle, some of these people. Okay, so that's Naeem. That's Janet Shah. That's Shamik from Octopus Ventures. Let me know if this is interesting to you guys as well, seeing who's who. Manjinder Virk, Jay Gujral, Mahdi Sharif. He's got a company in stealth. I don't think I'm allowed to say what his company does. That's Dhruv Eshampura. So I've invested in that company too, Tuck. Okay, so that's Leah Chowdhury. So she's been on the podcast too. So Shamik was actually on the podcast on Friday. So his episode's coming out this Friday. So keep an eye out for that. So this back of the head here, this is Matt Ong. So all my portfolio companies were at the event. Okay, it's not a great angle. Let's see if we can see that a bit. So that's me thinking. Okay. So this is the balcony from the event. So this is Nikita Thakra from Included VC, who's a huge supporter of the diverse communities and done huge impact within the ecosystem and globally as well, not just within the UK. Sam Benny of Platin VC, Jazz Atwell, who's a counsellor in Ilford, I believe. Arib Siddiqui, who's also been on the podcast. He is the founder of Kestrel, a Muslim money app. Okay, that's Sam Patel. I think that's Trisha Saxena, who's at Seraphim Space. So if any of you like space, make sure you check these people out. Who's this we got here? So I believe she's from Eagle Labs. That's Priyanka Mahajan, who's got a health tech startup. One thing I've you noticed as well is there's a lot of women at this event who've done amazing things and are building companies. And we really want to make sure that we're spotlighting women as well. So there's this, there's a disadvantage for being British Asian in the UK in terms of the startup space, but women also have a double disadvantage, right? And we're really proud of how many people come to our events and enjoy our events, and the feedback we're getting is encouraging us to keep going. So audience. So again, as you can see, maxed out audience, which is quite surreal to see and look back on. And also remember, I'm doing this to fill time. If there's any questions, shoot them across. Happy to answer. You might recognize him from TikTok. That's Jagsing online. What's a good photo? This one, I guess it's the next one that actually shows you a good idea of the audience. So you could see pretty much every single seat is full. There's a bunch of people standing up here as well who came late. This is Salim Chowdhury he was at Techstars. Kofi, so he's on his phone here, but Kofi's a big part of how the event was able to happen. Sunil Hirandani of Surf Coffee, I believe. I think I've told you all of these people's names already. That's Anshiga. Can't quite tell who that is from here. He's the founder of Evolve Drinks. This is Nikita, the founder of The Naked Laundry. I believe this is Sosh Shetty of Dim Ventures. Sorry if anybody's watching this and I get their names wrong. There was 120 people there, and I'm trying to do my best to make sure I'm paying attention. And obviously, it gets big. It's harder the more and more people you meet. But I try to remember everybody's stories as much as I can. So yeah, that's some of the pictures from the event. I didn't take any pictures at the school event because that would be a bit weird. Well, also I can show you this is what Sifted Summit is. So this is where we're going to be presenting. So if you go to speakers, so you've got all of these big people. So founder of Entrepreneur First, which is one of the most huge accelerator. You've got the chief operating officer of Monzo. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to be talking to all these people to try to get them on the podcast. So Shilpika Gautam, she's coming on the podcast. She's just been on holiday, so we're going to get her sorted out. She's a British Asian female founder who's raised about 7 million, I believe, for her company. Eileen Burbridge is another person which we hope to get on the podcast in the future. Rio Grover is coming on the podcast. Fiona is on our list. So Rio Grover has raised 20 million for Sequence. So Builder AI, again, somebody on our hit list of who wants spotlight. So Sachin's done built an incredible company. Hussein Kanji, I'm actually interviewing tomorrow morning. Andy Iam, who's a friend of ours. Andy is the founder of Angel Investing School, and he's coming on the Entrepreneur's Handbook podcast pretty soon. He's doing a great job in encouraging teaching minority people how to invest in startups, which obviously democratizes that access. And if there's more diverse people investing in startups, it's more likely that diverse people are going to get backed. So you've got North Zone there. So Sangam Mitrakar is also a friend of ours. So Morgan Stanley Inclusive Ventures, incredible what they're doing there. And we've been talking to them quite a lot. So we're hoping to do more with them in the future. No Label Ventures, again, so Ramsey's done a lot for the startup ecosystem in the UK. Tim Chong, founder of Yonder, he's coming on the podcast soon. So Yonder is a credit card for the UK with different rewards. Nikita, again, good friend of ours. She'll probably be coming on the podcast next year. Hey, hopefully you recognize that person. He looks a bit better there than how he does at 9 o'clock in the morning on Monday. Dipali, so she's done a huge amount of the ecosystem, especially for female founders as well. Elena Bassi, so I don't know Elena, but I know that she's done some pretty incredible work for founder communities too. What you probably notice here is that pretty much every Asian person we've got some kind of connection to. So Saranga Chandratalake, he's been on the podcast. He's like one of the most incredible Asian entrepreneurs we've had in the tech space. And he's also invested in places like Revolut in the early days. He's done a huge amount. So some of these people, I think they've been adding to this list of speakers, so some of them I don't recognize. But just giving you an idea, right, of like how incredible it is that look how much still I've got to scroll. So if you do want to come to this event, you can use our code BAY10. if you are an early stage startup founder, message me because I might be able to do something better. Harpal Singh is coming as well, so I'm pretty sure I'm in the same WhatsApp group as him. Again, Inclusive Ventures Lab from Morgan Stanley. Kaushik again. So Kaushik is a partner at EQT Ventures, which is one of the biggest venture capital funds in Europe. So he's done incredible work there. Nina Mahanti, she's amazing. She's the founder of Blue Money. She's been on the podcast as well. Puri Oberoi has been on the podcast. I haven't seen her before, but that's very interesting. NATO Innovation Fund. So it's a good food for. There's going to be so many incredible people to meet at this event. So I'm going to have to check a lot of these people out that I've not come across yet. So yeah, you can see there's about 10 of our podcast guests alone at this event, and then other people who we know but haven't yet been on the podcast. If you look at the agenda, so you search for us, you can see it's my history. There we are. So we're bringing along like an all-star list of people. So it's going to be Dimple Patel, Druvin Patel, Varun Banat, Sunil Jindal, Siddhi Mittal, Hanin Zhang, Dhruvesh Rampura, Neil Thakra, Tanya Sahar Gupta. I've got it in a group chat somewhere. I don't know what I've tried to do this in my head. So basically bringing an incredible group of people ourselves, but then on top of that, there'd be lots of other incredible Asian founders and startup people in the ecosystem there. So as I said, if you want to come, drop me a message, drop the Bay HQ message, and we'll see if we can get you a discount or in for free. But looking at time now, we're now out of time. So thank you for listening. Sorry for being a bit chaotic at the beginning. I'm going to sort out my system so that the email goes out before I come onto this, and I can just focus on you guys during this hour. But answer some of the questions that I got sent beforehand. So if you can ask questions now, remember this is the space to do it that you can get an easy and quick answer. All right. Have a good day. Take care. Let's stop sharing my screen first.